Good morning and welcome to the Isles of Scilly, and specifically here on St Marys Island. My name is Caroline and I'm travelling with my other half Andy, who right now is behind the camera, and this morning we're going to be taking a bit of a wander around both Hugh Town and up onto the Garrison Walls. If you're anything like me, I was very curious to know what this area was like, but Google Street View hasn't actually come to this place yet, so I thought it might be quite nice to take you guys on a tour around Hugh Town so that you can get a bit of an idea as to what it's actually like on the ground here. If you come on the Scillonian ferry, you'll come here to the main quay at St Marys, and in the background you've got Rat Island, which is actually a completely separate island to that of St Marys, and you can get to Rat Island by walking along the man-made quay. But we'll now take a wander into the town of Hugh Town right now. The other thing about the quay is that if you're wanting to go to one of the other islands or to take a wildlife boat trip, it's this quay that you have to come to in St Marys to be able to get on those boats. It does get incredibly busy at around about 10 o'clock in the morning with everyone headed down here. And there's a kiosk that you can probably see behind me that people go to be able to buy the tickets to board those boats. Once you come off the quay, everyone seems to take a left-hand turn and then wanders down Hugh Street, which has got a whole plethora of lots of different things, such as the Mermaid Pub, which as soon as all of the boats get back at around about 5 o'clock, this place is always heaving. There's also a pharmacy, which has come in handy for us on a couple of occasions. There's clothes shops if you have perhaps packed lighter than what we did, or you're on the Scilonian where the weight allowance isn't quite so problematic. And another pub. They also have a Lloyd's Bank, which interestingly closed down just a few weeks before our visit, but the ATM machine is still very much in operation. There's also a cafe where I've seen quite a lot of people popping in to pick up sandwiches to then take to have picnics on the off islands. There's a post office, which from my understanding, now that the last bank is closed on the island, people are a lot more reliant on this for money services. The Co-op, what is in my opinion the most important shop. There's also newsagents, which interestingly enough we were warned don't expect to have newspapers before about 11 o'clock in the morning because they get put on the first flight over from the mainland, and on Sundays, unless it's during the peak season when the Scilonian also sells on a Sunday, you can't get your Sunday papers until the Monday. And there's another cafe and another pub, and finally at the end there is yet another clothing store. The road is now going to fork and we're going to take the left-hand fork to go and have a look at the square. We've timed our morning around St Marys very well because it's a Wednesday. They have a farmers, makers and growers market here in the square. Because obviously we're right up to the max with our weight allowance to be able to fly back to the mainland, we've had to be incredibly choosy. Everything looked really good, but we've decided to go with some fudge from Veronica's Farm Fudge, and they had loads and loads of different flavours, so that was also quite challenging. But we've decided to go with the coffee and clotted cream, and this came really well recommended online. Inside of this bag is then some Scilonian Tattie Cake, so I think that that's something quite unique to this area. And then finally we've gone and picked up some white prepared crab meat so that we can have it in the sandwiches over the next couple of days. We've then come along to yet another green space that's full of lots of picnic tables, and it's right on the very edge of Town Beach. Behind me you can probably make out the Lifesavers boat station, and you can see a ramp going up to it, and it does look incredibly cute nestled right up amongst all of those rocks. One thing that I've learned though is that they've upgraded their boat, and the life-saving boat is considerably larger than the boat station, and therefore these days it just lives out in the harbour. A really quick wander down a side street that links between where the market was and the tourist information, which is right on the very edge of a beach. It's got these gorgeous sweeping windows overlooking it, and there's also some toilets attached to it, so you've almost got these public toilets right on the edge of the beach. The tourist information where you can go in, particularly when you first arrive, they were quite a hive of information for us. They were also able to tip us off on things like the cruise ships, when they were going to be coming and going and how many people were going to be on them, so that we could sort of plan out our time to try and escape those cruise ship passengers, or at least the hordes of them. can't say that I don't bring you to all of the best places. Now I know that this little square here might not look like too much, but it is probably one of my favourite parts of Hugh Town. Unfortunately the fish and chip shop van isn't here at the moment, but you can kind of get a bit of an idea because we've still got the Thai van here. And this is where you can come just to get takeaway food that is incredibly reasonably priced, especially when you compare it to proper sit-down restaurants with table services. And then what I really love about this area is just off to the side, a little promenade along Porthcressa Beach, where you've got lots of picnic tables that are nestled in amongst sort of cutouts of the land, so that you can sit with the high wall above you and you don't end up with the seagulls coming down from behind. And on our very first night when we first arrived and we were absolutely exhausted from the very long journey, we just came here, picked up some fish and chips and just ate, looking out over the gorgeous water, and other people were doing the same thing. Some people have bought barbecues from the local co-op and were actually barbecuing on the beach. So this area I just think is great. It's very practical and it's a very low cost way of doing things. After a very short but steep climb up through some very cute streets, we've managed to get up to what I assume to be the Garrison, because we've got the gorgeous arch and walls either side. The first place of significance that we've come along to is the Higher Battery. They've got 2 replica guns set out here, and one thing that I learned many years ago when travelling in Canada is that these aren't called cannons when they're on land. As soon as you put them on a ship they become cannons, but if they're on land they're called guns. These ones were put up here to be able to protect the harbour that you can see they look out onto. And the reason why they had several guns is because they were quite slow to be able to get loaded and fired. So by having several in the same place, it meant that they had a much better chance of fighting the enemy. This here is a sally port, and it was used by the defenders so that they could surprise the enemy when an attack was imminent. There's an area where the chains could run so that they could quickly close the door if the enemy was trying to get in. The English Heritage managed this site, and very helpfully they've put up plenty of plaques letting us know what it is that we're seeing. They've explained that the garrison originally was built because of threat of Spanish invasion, and then it was later used in the Civil War, in the First World War, and the Second World War, and obviously each time things have been added to it. Whilst this battery was built in the 1700s, the structure behind me wasn't put in place until the 1900s. It was used during the Second World War as a diesel engine room to power electric lights that could then be shone onto enemy ships so that we could shoot at the enemy at night time. The Star Castle Hotel is just starting to come into view. My understanding is that there's 2 different types of accommodations within the Garrison walls. One is the Star Castle Hotel, which is supposed to be like one of the best and nicest hotels on the Isles of Scilly. And then the other one, at the other end of the spectrum, is one of the most budget-friendly options, which is the campsite. And to round things off, we've come back to our apartment for a quick bite for lunch. And of course, we have ended up going with the crab that we picked up from that market. And we picked up a sort of cheesy jalapeno sourdough bread. And I thought the jalapenos would go really nice with the crab. So let's try some. That is super fresh, really flaky, really tender. It doesn't have any kind of fishy taste to it. And what's really nice is the way in which they've prepared it. It's been done very well, because there's none of those sort of flakes of, I guess, like the shell bits, which I have sometimes come across before when I've had crab. Truth be told, I don't actually know what is inside of a tatty cake. It looks actually not too dissimilar to the heather cake that I had when I was in Cornwall last summer, and I've got a whole Cornwall DIY food tour, so I will link to that video up in the corner if you are interested in it. It seems like it's made out of flour, sugar, butter, You can definitely see some raisins or sultanas in there. You can also see a little bit of lemon peel, and then there seems to be a dusting of sugar across the top. But I think the one thing that makes it look very, very different from a heather cake is that that was a lot more dry, whereas looking at this, it looks like this is going to be an incredibly moist cake. Oh my goodness. That has got to be one of the best types of this that I've had before. I've tried all sorts, such as like the Welsh cakes, the aforementioned heather cake, and what the difference is between, say, a brownie and a chocolate cake. You know how the brownie is like super gooey and super moist? I feel like this is that version of it. It's like a scone, it's like a Welsh cake, like a heather cake, but the gooey version of it, like a brownie. I'm absolutely in love with this. It's almost a little bit dangerous because now I think I just want to devour the whole thing. And last but by no means least, I'm going in for the Veronica Farm Fudge. I'm just having a very small piece of it because obviously I've just gone and had all of that cake too. That is so good. Obviously fudge is really creamy in its nature anyway, but throw in the clotted cream and that has just taken this fudge to a whole new level. And I love how you can just let it sit in your mouth and it just melts away, and it's not something that you have to chew through. And then the hints of the coffee, but it's subtle hints that work really, really well. To everyone on the internet who recommended that I pick up some of this fudge, thank you very much, because I am mighty pleased that I went and bought some. We'll round this video up here because this afternoon we're going to be going to one of the uninhabited islands, and I think I'll just turn that into a whole new video. So I really hope that you've enjoyed this. If you have and you found it really beneficial and helpful to you, I'd be most grateful if you could just give it a like, click on that thumbs up, as it will just help this video spread to others who might also find it enjoyable too. See you later, bye.